You little cat ears. Oh, bye, cat ears. I'm just going to start off by apologizing. If I look like I've been crying, it's because I've been crying. And if I start crying in this video, I'm 14 weeks pregnant, so it's par for the course, right? Tears happen. It's okay. Hi, guys. I'm Haley, and welcome to my 14-week pregnancy update. Yeah. This is going to be sort of a strange video and hopefully not too long because I'm going to be recapping my first trimester, how I felt, and then also this beginning of my second trimester and how I'm feeling now. Trying to start on like regular pregnancy updates. The reason I'm starting so late is because I wasn't planning on starting so late. I actually did 3 videos before this. One at 4 weeks pregnant, right after I found out. One at 6 weeks pregnant, 2 weeks after that. And one at like 9 weeks pregnant. And I had some technical difficulties with those. So, yeah. The first issue with that was I was being super inconsistent with it. I was not keeping track of things the way I should have been, not doing things regularly, and I just felt really crappy about the fact that like it was so inconsistent and not sticking to any sort of schedule. The other issue with that is I didn't want to release the videos right away because I wasn't going to announce my pregnancy until I was 13 weeks pregnant. Hi, kitty. So I had a backlog of video footage and I was trying to decide what to do with it. And then the audio for the whole second video that I did disappeared. I don't know what happened to it. I think it accidentally got deleted. So I'm re-recording things. And so today we're just going to recap everything and hope that this video is not like 9 hours long. So this is my second pregnancy. I have a 2-year-old daughter. And when I was pregnant with her, I loved being pregnant. It was the best thing ever. But I didn't like keep track of things. I mean, I kept track of things. I wrote some stuff down. I wrote down like milestones and stuff. But I didn't track things as well as I wanted to. I didn't keep a record of things. And I love the idea of being able to look back and remember where I was and what was happening when I was pregnant with my child. And so that's why I want to do this in the first place. If you found this video because you are also pregnant or trying to get pregnant or just a mom who really likes these, or not even a mom, just somebody who really likes these types of videos, hi, and thanks for watching, and we're just going to go into it and talk about all the wonderful pregnancy stuff. I should also say that we're probably going to get into a little bit of like TMI, wonderful things that nobody wants to talk about. Pregnancy and childbirth and all of that is a wonderful, wonderful cornucopia of just excellent bodily functions and gross, gross biological things. So, fair warning. So, first off, we were definitely trying to get pregnant. We were ready to have another baby, so this was planned, and so I knew from the moment I started my cycle, started my period in August, that this was going to be the cycle we were going to start trying on. Happened to be the cycle that we got pregnant on, the first month trying, which happened with my daughter as well. Also the first month trying, which is a huge fluke for a lot of women. I don't know if that's my genetics or my husband's genetics or what it is, but we were lucky, very, very lucky and blessed to get pregnant the first time we tried. Almost scary how fast how fast it was because I don't know, in my mind I was preparing myself for it to take like a year to get pregnant again, and it did not. So in August I started my period on the 4th. I remember because it was also the day we started our vacation. And also I was not tracking my cycle the way I normally do because we were on vacation. So I don't know the exact day that I ovulated, which is always going to bother me a little bit in the back of my mind because I knew the exact day I ovulated when I got pregnant with my daughter. But starting from about the time I knew I was going to ovulate, the time we started trying, I started writing some things down. So I knew within like a few days span of when I ovulated. So I wrote like 6 to 8 days past ovulation. I was just like waiting to test, like counting the days. Okay, can I test this day or this day or this day? And at that point, I wrote down that I was hungry a lot, peeing really frequently. Not just like the feeling of having to pee, but like peeing a full bladder several times a day. And I started craving really like savory foods, which was super strange for me. I am normally like a sweets person all the way. I always want sugar, but I started craving like savory and salty flavors. I did test at what I thought were 8 DPO, 10 DPO, 12 DPO, and they were all negative. I only used like dollar store tests because I didn't want to invest in like the first response tests. If I was going to get negatives, I knew I was testing early. But by 12 DPO and I was getting negatives, I was starting to get really frustrated. I got a positive with my daughter at about 11 DPO with a first response. And it was a pretty strong positive. So I was feeling like I might be out. And then on August 30th, which I think was 14 days after ovulation, I took a test. And I just remember looking at it and realizing there was a second line. And it was so faint that I was like, I'm imagining this. I have to be imagining this. And I ran to the window to look in the natural light, and I just squealed. I was like, oh my gosh. And my daughter, my 2-year-old daughter, comes running in and she says, what happened, Mama? So that's when I knew that was a faint positive. Very faint, though. It was a little hard to see. So I told my husband that night when he came home from work. I left it on his desk with a little like announcement card thing. Of course, he knew we were trying, so he wasn't shocked and surprised, although it was our first month. So we were a little surprised. And then 2 days after, on September 1st, I tested again. So it would have been 16 days after ovulation. And it was definitely a darker, more definitive positive. And that's the day I actually announced to my mom and sisters and best friends, and my husband's family. So it sounds like a lot of people. Actually, I think we waited a few days to tell my husband's family. But I told my mom right away, and my dad and my sisters, and then my 2 best friends, because I tell them everything. So and the first day I got my positive, 14 days after ovulation, was the day that my period was supposed to be due according to the app I was using to chart. Like I said, I hadn't been charting, but that's when it was predicted to start. And obviously I didn't start that day. So on September 6th, I was about 5 weeks pregnant, and I did have some light brown spotting, some like tan discharge, which freaked me out. And I learned that apparently that's super common in pregnancy. Like 30% of women with healthy pregnancies have some sort of bleeding early on in pregnancy, even throughout their pregnancy, and have totally normal, healthy children. There's a lot of things that could cause it, but it only lasted for like a day, and never happened again after that. Never got dark, was never red or even pink, and was never more than a little bit of spotting when I would go to the bathroom. Weeks 4 and 5, I was feeling very bloated, really hungry. I wasn't really craving anything sweet, still very savory stuff. I would feel nauseous in the morning when my stomach was empty, and then I would get up and eat and feel a lot better. And that's about the time I started to get really irritable. Started super early and has not gone away. It has gotten better in the second trimester. I also started going to bed at like 9 o'clock, and normally I would stay up to like 11:30. I'm a night owl. I normally go to bed super late and would sleep in as much as I could with a toddler. But going to bed at like midnight and waking up at like 8 in the morning was totally doable for me. And as soon as I got pregnant, I've needed like 12 hours of sleep at night. Like, I cannot function if I don't go to bed at 9 o'clock. I also wrote down at 5 weeks that my left breast started to get bigger and was noticeably bigger than my right breast. And I vividly remember sitting in the bathtub and looking down and being like, what is going on here? They're so uneven. That has since corrected itself, but one was definitely growing and the other one didn't look like it had grown at all. I am naturally very small-chested, and after I started nursing my daughter, my chest went back to its normal size, which is like barely a B cup. So I could definitely tell when they start to grow. It's a big difference, night and day, between when I am pregnant and when I am not. So my daughter just woke up from her nap, and if you hear background noise, it's most likely Steve from Blue's Clues, because that's what she's watching. So 6 weeks is when things really started to change for me, most noticeably. I started to get really bad insomnia, which I've never had in my life. But when I would wake up, I would be wide awake. I would still fall asleep okay at night, and then when I would wake up in the middle of the night, I could not fall back asleep, especially if I had to wake up and pee in the middle of the night. Getting up physically, I would be done. It didn't matter what I did, I couldn't fall back asleep. So I'd end up watching something on my phone, which only made me stay awake even longer. And that really hasn't gone away too much. It's changed a little bit, but I still do have some insomnia. I was still craving savory food. In fact, sugary things were making me really sick. They did not sound good to me. Almost an aversion, which is so strange. I cannot tell you how addicted to sugar I am as a human being. And so to have these feelings of I don't want anything sweet ever was so strange. I also started to get my morning sickness around 6 weeks. And that lasted right up until about, I think 9.5 weeks. 9 weeks. And I never actually threw up, so that's good. But for a few weeks, I would get sick anytime I would eat anything, no matter what it was. As soon as I would eat, I would feel super nauseated. There were a few things where I probably would have thrown up if I had not, made myself really comfortable so I wouldn't. I have a fear of throwing up, so I would, do everything I could to not throw up because throwing up freaks me out so badly. But I would almost rather, eat something and then throw up and be like, oh, okay, I feel better, rather than just feel sick and nauseated. And that's what it was just no matter what I ate, it made me sick, and then I would not want to eat it again, ever. In fact, I still, can't eat things that made me sick in my first trimester, which really sucks. The other weird thing about my nausea was that it would sort of ebb and flow in a really weird way. So in about a week's time span, I would have 2 days of feeling horribly sick, just horrible. Didn't want to eat anything, didn't want to move from the couch because I would probably throw up. A day where I felt nauseated but a little bit better. And then a day or two of feeling totally normal, totally okay. And then another day of feeling mildly nauseated, not feeling so great, and back to feeling really, really crappy. So I did still have a few days of reprieve in those weeks where I would actually feel pretty good and feel more like myself and be able to eat and not want to die. And then probably around 8 weeks or so, I started to crave sweeter things again. My cravings for sugar definitely came back. Around 8 or 9 weeks is also when I started to become really emotional. I didn't really have this with my daughter. I was mostly really happy and upbeat with my daughter, even from early on, from what I remember at least. I was not emotional, I would start crying at the drop of a hat. I used to be like that. Growing up, I was like that all the time. I would cry no matter what. And then when I got pregnant, I kind of stopped being like that. And now that I'm pregnant again, it's gone back to I cry at the stupidest things. I cried one day because my in-laws brought us candy, boxes of chocolates, and I was so touched by the fact that they gave us candy that I cried. I cried because I had a really good day with my dad. We did this scavenger hunt thing that we do every year in their small town where they live. And I got home and I started bawling, and my husband was like, "What's wrong?" And I was like, "I'm just so sad that today's over. It was just such a good day." I don't think I've ever cried out of sheer like happiness like that before. And it was over something that was pretty silly, but it just was a sweet day, and yeah, a little embarrassing. I cry over a lot of really silly things. I'll hear like a song from my childhood and it'll just make me melt down crying. I cried at the end of Toy Story the other day. No reason why, I literally just cried at the end of Toy Story the other day. About 9 weeks is also when the exhaustion started to set in, so I was surprised this didn't set in earlier. But I started to get to the point where I just want to sleep. As soon as I leave the house, I lose all my energy and I don't want to be outside anymore. I don't want to be at the grocery store or out of my house. I just want to go home and lay down. It's also when I started to have some pretty vivid dreams, particularly bad dreams. I started having really vivid nightmares. And I started having this really weird thing. Luckily, this didn't keep going for very long, but for about a week, I was having bad dreams where I would think I would wake up in my bed. It would take place from my bedroom at night, and it would always be somebody was breaking into the house or something was wrong with our daughter. But it was always like originated from where I was when I was there. And so it was like I couldn't tell when I was actually awake and when I was actually asleep. And therefore I was also not resting very well because I couldn't tell when I was actually asleep and resting and when I was awake. I mean, once I was awake, obviously I'd be able to tell, but when I was dreaming, I really thought I was awake because it would start out for me waking up in bed and being like, I hear something, there's someone in the house, and I would get up and walk through my house, and it would look exactly like my house, and then something bad would happen, and I would actually wake up and be like, oh. It really messed with my like reality perception for a while, and like was really that coupled with insomnia, not such a great combination. 8.5 to 9 weeks is when my nausea completely went away. It actually freaked me out a little bit. I thought maybe, they say disappearing symptoms can be a sign of miscarriage, but that wasn't the case. Other symptoms popped up in its place. I just thankfully did not have to deal with nausea for more than a few weeks, and I'm very thankful for that. I would still get kind of an upset stomach sometimes though, like when I would eat something, it was more like I would get achy and really gassy, but I will take that over nausea anytime. It wasn't until 8 or 9 weeks where I also started to get very sore in the chest area. I know for a lot of women, that's one of the very first symptoms they feel. For me, I did not experience it until 8 or 9 weeks, and it has not gone away. There are days when it's better, but it's sore most of the time. For me, it's particularly like under the arms, like the sides, is where it gets really sore, and they're mostly okay until they get touched at all. So like my husband comes home from work and hugs me, and I'm like, ow. It's hard to say whether wearing a bra makes it feel worse or not wearing a bra makes it feel worse. Like, they just hurt if anything touches them. And then from 9 to 14 weeks, really most of my symptoms sort of died down. Right around 12 weeks, when you are ending your first trimester, a lot of my symptoms started to dissipate, which is not uncommon. That happens a lot. Your hormones start to level off, and so yeah, I started to feel a lot better, a lot more like myself. A lot of times I sort of forget that I'm pregnant, except for the fact that I'm showing. I will put in the clips I took of my belly shots from early on till now. I started showing at like 8 weeks. I remember right about 8 weeks looking in the mirror and being like, what the heck, I look pregnant. I looked at 8 weeks like I did at like 16 weeks with her. Yeah, maybe like 14 weeks. So I don't know. I felt really big, and now that I will show you a belly shot now too. 14 weeks today, and I definitely am showing. And it's not just like in the evenings anymore, like, oh, after I've eaten all day and it's the end of the day, you can tell a lot more. When I wake up in the morning, I can look in the mirror and see a belly bump, and it's not just bloat. I'm sure a lot of it is still bloat, but there's definitely more there. I had my first prenatal appointment at 11 weeks, and she did say she measured my, what's that called? Fundi? I don't remember if that's the right word. She measured where my uterus was, and at 11 weeks, it was 4 finger widths above my pubic bone, which I remember at about 11 weeks with my daughter when I went in for my first prenatal appointment, it was still below my pelvic bone, so you couldn't actually feel where my uterus was. So my uterus stretched considerably more this time early on, which again is really common with second and third and multiple pregnancies because your body's used to it. Your body knows what to do now. It's gone through this before and it knows what to expect, and so it starts to grow naturally on its own. Baby was still the size it was supposed to be, and it's only one baby, not twins. We also heard the heartbeat for the first time at the first prenatal appointment. It took her a while to find it, which was really scary. She searched like all over my uterus. Finally found it way over in the corner, but it's funny because it was right where I kept saying that the baby was. I kept saying, I think it's right here. Like, I have a feeling it's right here. I can feel like the pinching, when implantation occurs and all of that. And I was like, I think it's like in this corner down here. And lo and behold, that's where she heard the heartbeat. So there was something really like touching to me that I knew exactly where my baby was. Heartbeat was about 150 beats per minute, and that's great. That's normal and healthy. And then, because I go to a midwife, a birthing center. Because I go to a midwife at a birthing center, they just got an ultrasound machine. They don't know how to work it yet, and so they need people to practice on that don't need an ultrasound. And because I'm low risk and everything looked great with my pregnancy and I was pretty far along and everything, I knew when I got pregnant, so I know about how far along I am. I didn't need an early ultrasound, and so the midwife practiced on me. I'll insert a couple of pictures that we have. They're pretty not good. They're really not good. You can't see anything. And part of that's because their ultrasound machine is not hooked up to a camera, so they can't print, or a printer, I guess. So they can't print the pictures. So we had to take it on their phone. And because she was really new to this, we happened to take it at a moment where you couldn't really see the baby. We did get better views of the baby. We just didn't end up with very good pictures of the baby, but we'll have an anatomy scan in another few weeks. Not at the birthing center, at a different place. So that'll be good. They did blood work for me as well, but I never heard back from them on how that went. She said with how busy they've been, there is a chance that they won't call unless something is wrong with the blood work, and so that's what I assume happened, was just everything looked fine. I have another appointment soon, so I'll find out when I go in and make sure everything looks okay. I assume if something were really wrong, they would tell me by now. I can't remember, I think it was between 12 and 13 weeks, we announced that we were pregnant to everyone, to our social media. That's when I was planning on recording this video to begin with, and that it didn't happen, and then all the other issues happened, and so here we are now. Why is my lighting really bad right now? All right. So I'll put a picture in of the picture we used to announce. As for symptoms I'm feeling now in my second trimester, the biggest thing is that I've had really bad rhinitis, I think that's how you say it, which is like the severe stuffy nose. Granted, we have a change of seasons. We went through fall basically. We're starting into our winter weather here. And allergies happen anyway. I get seasonal allergies, so that could be to blame. But also, it is very common with hormonal changes. But I spent about a week sleeping on the couch just because I would wake up in the middle of the night, couldn't breathe at all. My mouth would be so dry that I couldn't swallow. Water wouldn't help. Like, my mouth would be so dry that I could guzzle water, and my mouth would still just feel so dry. it was miserable. And so I would go and lay on the couch and just kind of wait for it to wear off. I'd be eating like cereal in the middle of the night because eating would sometimes help clear things up. I'm just sitting on the couch watching YouTube until I'm either so exhausted that I crash or my nose clears up enough that I can fall asleep. So it was a pretty rough week. It's gotten better. That was probably around 12 weeks. And it has gotten a lot better, but it's definitely still there sometimes, especially falling asleep at night. I can feel it. And I can normally get into a position that's comfortable enough that like one nostril is clear and I can breathe. It's not fun. Also, I started to get really, really achy, particularly in my hips, my neck. My back's been pretty iffy, but I have bad hips anyway, so that's to be expected. And I think my neck was mostly from sleeping on the couch in weird positions. So I am trying to eat healthy, but not doing the greatest job at it. I forgot to mention that with my nausea, I started eating a lot of processed food because it was the easiest thing to have really quickly. Like, okay, I feel like I can eat. Let me eat cup of noodles because it's super easy and fast. I don't have to cook food and then feel nauseated from the smell of the food. And it was something I could buy in individual servings, so if it made me sick, I didn't have a bunch of leftovers that I either had to throw out and deal with the smell or try to eat and feel sick again. Like, I didn't have to deal with that. So I did a lot of canned food and a lot of like canned soup, and I did SpaghettiOs sometimes. Yeah, a lot of just really quick, easy foods that I could tell really were not good. I normally eat pretty healthy. Before I got pregnant, I was primarily plant-based. I ate mostly plants, not a lot of meat and dairy. And I would like to get back to that point. I did start out this pregnancy underweight, and so my midwife really wants me to work on getting the nutrients I need and gaining weight. Yeah, because I need to, because I started out underweight. I was at a healthy weight when I had my daughter, when I got pregnant with my daughter, and I lost way more weight than I started at with her. I do still want sugar all the time, which kind of sucks because we just had Halloween. So my third trimester started on Halloween, which is great. But we have candy in the house. Somebody gave us a pumpkin pie, so we have pumpkin pie. I went out and got ice cream for my husband's birthday for ice cream sundaes, and we have ice cream in the house. We just have so much sugar, and I always want more. Like, every time I'm out the store, I'm like, I really want to buy cookies. I really want to buy this. I really want to buy that. And so I have such an influx of sugar, which is horrible. It's so bad for me. My husband brought home soda the other day, and I was like, crap, I'm screwed. Caffeine and sugar. Like, I don't know what to do anymore. Coffee doesn't sit very well with me anymore. Really didn't in the first trimester. I'm normally an avid coffee drinker. I drink it like once in a blue moon now because it just doesn't sound good to me ever. I also occasionally get really bad aftertaste in my mouth. Not really metallic, just if I eat something savory in particular, I can't stand the aftertaste of it. I've been craving pickles, but when I eat pickles, the aftertaste of it, like, tastes so gross in my mouth. If I eat something savory, I want a bite of something sweet right afterwards to, like, cleanse my palate. Like, I cannot stand the taste of something savory left on my tongue. I also had this weird thing around, like, 12 weeks pregnant or something like that, where I had this strange aftertaste, or not even aftertaste, like, weird feeling in my mouth. Like, have you ever eaten too many Skittles or, like, sour candies, and it just leaves this weird, like, feeling in your mouth? Like, not even over salivation, just, like, I think it's from all the sugar, just, like, this weird fuzzy feeling in your mouth. Like, I would get that all the time. Like, no matter what I would eat. It didn't have to be sugar. It didn't have to be candy. Like, I could just eat normal food and have this weird feeling in my mouth. And it really sucked. Luckily, it only lasted a few days, but, like, I have no idea what the heck that was. And then I'm still having some aversions, particularly to things that made me sick when I was in my first trimester. So the other day I had a bite of something with gravy on it. It was actually vegan gravy. Brown gravy, and I was like, oh, this sounds yummy. I like this. I took a bite, forgetting that I had had that one of the times I got the sickest. And one bite one bite, and I was like, I can't do it. I don't want this. This is really bad. And I didn't even know why at first. I was just like, something's wrong with this. I don't want it. And then I was thinking about it later that night, and I was like, I got sick on that with that other thing I made before, and that's why I can't have it. So I'm wondering if I'll ever be able to eat that again. As for baby right now is the size of a lemon, I guess, is what most things say. A couple of things say peach, but to me a peach is quite a bit bigger than a lemon. And then I think I saw something that said a nectarine, which I think is probably a little closer in size to a lemon. Maybe it's just here where I live, peaches actually grow really well, but the peaches we get they're big peaches. They're like softball sized peaches. Maybe that's not like a normal size for peaches. I mean, that is like they're naturally grown. It's not like chemicals that are sprayed on them that make them, they're not all full of GMOs that make them that big, but I don't know. Is that not normal? Anyway, baby's the size of a lemon. About 3.4 inches long, so not quite 3.5 inches in length, and about 1.5 ounces, which is so light but seems so substantial to me. Like, to think about, like, that's a decent size considering the fact that it started out as the size of a poppy seed. Like, I mean, it started out like microscopic technically. That's incredible to think that it's grown that much. And all of its major organs are in place. It looks like a baby. Like, proportion-wise, it's almost right, except I think the legs are still slightly shorter in proportion to the body than what they will be by the end. But the head is in proportion. The facial features are where they should be. It looks like a baby. Its kidneys are making urine. It's practicing swallowing with the amniotic fluid and peeing with the amniotic fluid. It's starting to be able to hear things. It's getting, I forget the word and I didn't write it down, that like the peach fuzz that covers their body and helps insulate them through pregnancy. It's growing that right now. It can rub its eyes and yawn. And I don't know, it's so cute to think about the fact that this is like basically a fully functioning baby, except not. Obviously, all of these things need to develop much more before a baby is ready to be born. But the fact that all of those building blocks are in place and we have a full baby in there. I don't know how to say that. Okay, so that's it for this video. Hopefully the rest of mine will not be this long. The lighting has changed drastically because I've been doing this for way too long now. Yeah, so hopefully I'll be able to do another one of these. I don't know if I'll start doing them weekly or bi-weekly or monthly. I'm not really sure what we'll do. If I don't do one at 15 weeks, I'll definitely do one at 16 weeks, especially since by then I will have my next prenatal appointment, so we'll see if anything changes or anything's new. Yeah. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you would like to follow on my pregnancy journey, go ahead and subscribe and leave a comment if you're pregnant, because I'm really curious to know where you are in your pregnancy. I love following other people who are pregnant, and I love that community of people who are like trying to conceive or have conceived or have babies. There's something really wonderful about connecting with other people on the same journey as you. So yeah, I'll see you next time, guys. Bye.